thought it was macro.
I thought it was micro.
I've heard AP microeconomics.
I think it's probably micro.
Is it Mr. Scaff teaching it? Okay,
yeah,
so
so
then I think
everybody
it's micro. That's gonna be a good class if he's teaching.
Yeah,
I could teach accounting.
I heard you should.
He's awesome. I have my student Geo.
Yeah.
Remember Geo?
Want to play? Do you like bocce?
I want to play. We need Carla, don't we?
Call the school committee meeting from February 27th to order. It is 7:03. We have a remote attendee, so we'll do a roll call, and apologize in advance for two of our members who unfortunately have to travel for business. So we are a little bit light, but we are still functional. So roll call, Sean?
Here.
Carla?
Here.
Sarah? Here. And Tom here. So we are called to order. A quick walkthrough for the agenda, then we'll jump in. We'll start with public comment for anybody here from the public that wishes to address the committee on anything not on the agenda, and that will be our starting point. When you do that, it'll be 2 to 3 minutes, your name, address, and what your question or point is. We then move to consent agenda, where we'll go through that and review and approve it. We'll move to reports, starting with our students, then our Director of Finance and Operations, our Superintendent, and any liaison reports that we may have here in the committee. We'll go from there to old business, which includes a discussion and vote on the FY26 school calendar, and then move to new business, including the FY25 Q2 financial report, FY26 kindergarten enrollment update, approve the awarding of the David B. Libby Scholarship, discussion and potential vote on a town meeting warrant article for school bus camera enforcement systems pursuant to Chapter 399 of the Acts of 2024. A discussion on a potential new cell phone policy and potentially including guidance for the policy subcommittee, and then a notification of upcoming policy votes will conclude us. So there we go. Now with that said, we will start with public comment. Anybody here wish to make public comment? Dr. Corum first hand up, and then you want to defer? Okay, please.
Chris Kowaleski, 14 Browning Terrace, Reading. Do you want the topic?
Sure.
Special education within school. This will be close to 3 minutes, but I'll be under 3 minutes. As you all know all too well, the website's second sentence after welcome to Reading Public Schools is our district is committed to meeting the needs of all learners. The continued vision states that its goals is to instill a joy of learning through inspiration, engagement, and support. This week, another special education teacher took a job in a neighboring district in the middle of the school year. They did this because the repeated requests for support, additional trained staffing and resources to meet the needs of their students remained unmet month after month. The caseloads, that's what they call our children who are extra fun, become too many and too complex and finally untenable for a skilled, experienced, and mature educator. to continue to ask or plead for assistance, which those in the disability community called advocacy, merited them the term abrasive. The role of the special education teachers may seem as managing only a small classroom, but it is anything but, especially in the soon-to-be defunct and defunded SAIL program housed at Wood End. Those professionals must have experience in a broad array of disabilities, especially moderate to severe ones. Those students are often nonverbal, communicate through action and non-action. We call that behavior, and require extensive AAC training and support, including medical considerations. They coordinate with any number of therapists. Our son's own team numbers 10 around the table every time we have a meeting, and support the paras, specialists, and gen ed teachers so that students' time in the gen ed teachers so that the students' time in the classroom is meaningful and impactful, both for the students and the classroom. They collect data and know how to share it so we know what we need to know. Losing this teacher is just one in a line of missteps we seem to be making in terms of our commitment as a town to special education. We hire and do not support. We profess to care about every learner, but we are not willing to spend an extra money on hiring adequate, qualified, and experienced staff. I am deeply tired of my son being a training ground for new hires only to have them leave a year later, or the inevitable shifting of teachers from one school to another or one class to another as short-term solutions their students lose as well. In addition, we are ignoring the anticipated national shortage of teachers looming in the most shocking of ways, finding, hiring, onboarding, and then getting them in the classroom and up to speed with a series of, from personal experience, 48-page IEPs for complex learners, and then refusing to value their professional expertise and requests for support is so short-sighted and financially insane that it hurts. There is nothing inspiring for our children to see the revolving door of those who are helping those who need the most help because we refuse to support them. This week I have learned our children are looked upon as units and not necessarily children, and I'm deeply disappointed. Thank you.
So Chris, thank you. Technically, by policy, we don't need to respond, but I feel like this needs a response. So I don't know how best to respond to it, but I'll just say thank you for coming, right? Your voice is important. I do believe that we support special education probably better than most districts, if not all districts around. It doesn't mean that everybody's life is going to be perfect in that process, and we definitely should learn from every particular situation and get better. I don't think we've had an issue with funding in special education. I think if you look at our budget, we've put a significant amount of money to special education over the last 2 or 3 years. Doesn't mean it's done yet, but it's definitely not an issue of funding overall. I don't mean to say that to minimize anything that you've experienced in any way, shape, or form, but I just want to say thank you for coming, and we will listen to what you've heard, and we'll figure out what the next steps might be. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Corum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeffrey Corum, Ridge Road. Looking through the packet, I got to the end with the correspondence, which I think is not going to be discussed during the meeting. So I wanted to address the fact that I do feel that SOCA for EGI has been extremely patient with their request to rename the school. And I've seen, a number of requests over the months for them to get on the agenda. The other note that I had was your request and your response that they use personal email instead of the group email, and I would ask that you look into the possibility of adding that particular group's email to your safe senders list or something, so that they're don't have their personal email addresses exposed in the packets in the future.
So again, we don't technically have to respond, but I will respond to that because I'm very close to that one overall. As a technicality, the email here is the first request to rename Joshua Eaton. The requests before were the review of policy FF. And that policy review is very much in process. We talked with a member of that team earlier today. We have another email from that team that we're going to respond to very shortly to go through. The other side of the equation is not necessarily just the safe senders list per se. We're looking into the issues with junk, but there is anytime you have an email that comes from what could be, now we know SOCA for EJI is not, but what could be an anonymous source, it produces challenges for the committee in terms of what we can and should respond to. So we want to make sure that we're responding to members that are known members of the community. So that's the other side of that as well. And it makes it easier. I don't perceive they should feel like and I don't think Tamia is either. She came earlier in the meeting, that there's anything for them to hide from. They are who they are, and they're requesting what they're requesting. And I don't think they're trying to hide that either. I think they're just trying to speak in one voice when they come from that perspective. And so in many other cases, we've had those direct conversations, and we will continue to have those direct conversations. The policy is under review and has gone through multiple steps.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment conversations?
Are we on that, is Unified on the agenda?
You are.
Okay,
You're up next.
sure.
You're up next. I skipped past that. I apologize, didn't I? When I said the agenda.
Sure that you
No.
knew we were coming tonight?
No, my sincere apologies. The next topic on the agenda is the focus on excellence and the unified bocce team in particular. So Dr. Milczewski will introduce the team.
Great. Well, good evening. So exciting to see so many members of the Unified Bocce team and families, support staff all here tonight too. I'd like to start by saying one of the things I think our community should be most proud about over the last couple of years is the work that's happened in the around unified sports and unified programming, which I think has been a significant increase in opportunities for our students. And the buzz around what's happening unified, the excitement, I think is palpable, and I think is translates both in the day-to-day school and also outside in our community. As I talk about Unified, any chance I'll say a huge thank you to Tara Herlihy, who you hear from tonight. Just her vision, her leadership, her advocacy, and just, I would say, to making this vision a reality. When we had talked about Unified Sports for All, her taking sort of the reins of it and making it happen to a point where you may hear a little bit about tonight, the different programs we offer, is a testament to her and what she's done. She has not done it alone. You see so many staff members here too, so many parents, so many students who have been a part of this. So I just thank Tara first and foremost, but also just thank you for all the staff behind the scenes who day to day make this a possibility. And also thank you to all of our students for making this program such a success. For the students, as you may know, tonight is a chance for us to talk a little bit about what happened with Unified Bocce. People are watching at home. People are watching, they'll be able to see kind of what you talk about too. So it's exciting for everyone to hear about how awesome it was. So that way more people can learn about it, get involved, and support you. So I will invite Ms. Herlihy to come on up, and if you want to share any words, and then you can invite the whole team up as well. But we ask you to just come up.
I'll come up, I'll just share it if I need it, and then give it to you.
Yes, please.
Perfect.
The more we hear from, the better, I think.
All right.
Tara,
Right,
thank you.
which one?
Either one, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Hi, I'm Tara Herlihy. I'm a teacher at Coolidge, a special education teacher. Unified, where am I looking? Anywhere?
Look here.
Okay. Unified started for high schoolers 3 years ago. We started just with basketball in the spring. Last year, we started being able to offer 3 seasons. We do basketball in the fall and the spring, and in the winter, we partnered with the YMCA, which is, we're very lucky because it's so close by to our schools. So we partnered with the YMCA in the winter, and we did a strength and conditioning season. So Unified went from not existing to being a 1-season sport to being a 3-season offering in Reading, which was fantastic. But being a middle school teacher, it was great to see a lot of the kids that I had previously had in middle school as high schoolers. That was really fun. But I wanted to see if we could build it a little bit and welcome some of our middle schoolers in. And the state, through Special Olympics of Massachusetts, has begun to have some middle school programs. So we jumped on board with that. Their fall offering is bocce. So we started with that this fall, which sounds like a kind of a strange sport, but it ended up being like really, really fun because bocce is one of those sports that everybody can try, and we got very competitive with it. We got really fun. We actually hosted the Jamboree for our team. We hosted it at Coolidge, which was really nice. And we won, right? We won. So that was really awesome. So this crew also joined in the winter season with the high schoolers at the YMCA Strength and Conditioning. And today they kicked off their spring season of middle school basketball. So now we have 3 seasons of sport for the unified sports for middle school, which is fantastic. And I think it's a huge thing for our school system, a huge thing for the community. I'm really happy that we've had all the support that we've had to be able to bring this to our kids. I'll let, Lewis, do you want to share anything about your experience before the kids go, or?
I think they're excited to talk. Wait, I can go first?
She can.
My name is...
I know you participate.
My name is Arthur Pereira, and I'm here to share why, like, clubs should be, like, extended. I mean, like, bocce and all the other sports very good, but why they should be like short? Like, they should be like for like all year or something like that, cause well, you know, like they end like after a month. Well, yeah, because you know why? They need to like put in some room for new clubs, but seriously, why not just put all the other clubs in like any other day, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays?
You want it every day.
Or like do it every single day. I mean, like it's so simple. And guys, I'm not joking. And like, yeah, I liked bocce. I mean, we could have played bocce during strength and condition so that we could like continue bocce, although bocce season's over. Like bocce also counts as exercise. Like we could have all just went to the fitness room, and maybe even Coach Paul could be our bocce coach.
Oh, I'm getting kicked out.
Coach, Mrs. Hurley.
All right, Arthur, maybe one of the other kids wants to talk.
Oh, and for basketball, it like ends way too early. I mean, end it for like all the other clubs. I'm like, even Best Buddies too, it even ended after a month. Like, I liked Best Buddies. The fact that we made bracelets, made bookmarks for retirement people are like really so much fun. Like, what could it have been for a month? I mean, like, we could have just done so many more activities.
I like to clean it up, buddy.
Like, you know, and we...
Who wants to be next?
Good job, Arthur.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Lila Robinson, and I'm so grateful to be a part of the unified like sports. It's so fun, and I love to like hang out with everyone, and it's like everyone's just so nice and kind, like all the people that go there, and it's just awesome. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think she'd be a great teacher.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to say anything? I don't want you to feel pressured. I know, sorry. All right, well, thank you.
I'll say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Bocce was really fun for me. Unified is a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun having something that disability kids can do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for having us. Arthur really would like to play every sport every season. That's a hard thing to understand. One thing ends and another thing starts. You have some more suggestions. All right, think your top 2, and you can share your top 2. But thank you for having us. It's really awesome to have something fun to look forward to after school for all of our kids. So, Artie, you have one more thing you want to share?
Oh, and here are like my top 2 suggestions. So for my first suggestion, they should do like a volleyball club. Like after the basketball season, we can just play volleyball. Mr. Heisinger would like set us up some volleyball nets. and then we could like get a ball, and then we could like throw it to other people. And for the next thing I want to do is like tennis. Because you know how in tennis you like have like these paddles and then you throw them over a net? Well, that's what we should do. I think it's going to be pretty fun and make Unified more popular, and like everyone for to sign up or something.
Arthur, thank you for those recommendations.
It's a little bit sad because when Unified middle school season ends, the high school season starts, so that means the middle school kids are done with their season early. So that is a hard thing for our kids, but maybe it will extend in the future. We'll see. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we let you go, for anybody who's willing, we always do a picture for those that come for Focus on Excellence after they're done presenting. So we'd love to have you come down in front and take pictures with us. If you don't want to, you're not comfortable, that's fine too, but hopefully people will be.
It's got to get out of the way.
Slide next to Dr. Adam. There you go.
Are you good?
Couple more. Awesome.
Are you good?
I'm sorry, I messed up at the
Middle school principal. He's got a future as a politician.
Yeah, he's the ties come out. Sweatshirt's unzipped.
I played last
Just
week.
today, folks.
My parents in
So
Florida.
we're leaving right after
bocce
our
league.
thing.
They're the rolling oldies. We're leaving right after our They're so competitive. It's hysterical.
Sarah, hopefully you got to see them then.
You come too. You come
After
too.
the whole report.
Yeah. Okay. We would never abandon you.
I was gonna say, I just, you guys finish up.
My mics are on.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, Jonah.
Good job, Jonah. Okay, so we're going to move on in our agenda to the consent agenda. Carla, will you give me a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Seconded by Sean. Any discussion? Sarah saying no. Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Sarah? Yes. Sean?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Tom? Yes. So it is approved 4-0. And we move on to the reports, and we'll start with our students. So who's starting us?
Me.
Sachi? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so for updates, a group of RMHS students just returned from a Spanish immersion trip to Costa Rica that took place over February break. I was on there. Students lived in groups of 2 to 3 with Spanish-speaking families, attended events and community activities with counterparts, and had a truly amazing experience. Thank you to Miss Irons and Miss Betty Murphy for taking us on this trip and making it safe and amazing. I do kind of want to talk a little bit about that because I did just come back from it last night. It was honestly one of the best, like we all agreed, everybody who went on that trip, we were talking afterwards, it was like that was one of the best experiences of our lives. I had maybe 1 or 2 really close friends who also went on the trip, but aside from that, everyone else I was acquainted with, but I was never really close to, and coming out of that, we all become such a tight-knit community now, with like billions of inside jokes, and it was such an amazing experience. I know originally the plan was we would all go to Madrid, which is what we've done in the past, and obviously like teachers had to switch because some teachers left, and everything kind of changed. But I honestly think Costa Rica was a much more immersive experience than what we would have had in Madrid, which is obviously a very like touristy location. Not that Costa Rica isn't, but the town we stayed in was very small, very like tight knit. Everybody knew each other. You really got to experience like what it would be like to grow up living there. And I think one of the best parts of this experience was the freedom that it gave us. We had a curfew, 9 p.m. Everybody was fine with that. But all of us would, we'd text in the group chat and we'd be like, oh, let's go meet here, let's go do this. We all went out to dinner one time at a recommended restaurant. We would hang out at the Plaza de Deportes, which is the sports plaza, right next to the local middle school, which was amazing because we got to meet all these students from the school who were there just playing basketball. And we got to talk with them in Spanish. Our Spanish overall improved. And we just made amazing friends and like memories to last a lifetime. So I did just want to talk a little bit about that and how amazing an experience it was. So we are super thankful to have this opportunity and this privilege, and to also, be without privileges. No hot water, no air conditioning, in the home and the places that we stayed, which I honestly think was actually a good part of the experience, though some might disagree. So yeah, that was the trip. And then afterwards, 16 RMHS students are competing this Thursday and Friday in the state DECA competition held in Boston, so today and tomorrow. Students had to qualify through past competitions to be eligible for this amazing event. Thank you to Ms. Rosenfeld, Mr. Skeffington, and Mr. Blanchard for making this possible. And then congratulations to all the winter athletic programs for great seasons. Gymnastics, girls basketball, and girls hockey are still in the tournament playing for the state title. And then spring athletic tryouts begin on March 17th. I will be there playing tennis, so you may not see me post-March. But yeah, I'm very excited for spring sports.
Great. Anything else?
Yeah, we got a few more things. Right up next, kind of what we talked about in the last meeting, like the majority of the time, the new AP classes, so I won't go through and list all of those again, but students excited to have that opportunity for next year, especially the freshmen becoming sophomores. And then also seniors that qualify and apply for the senior internship program. Right now, there are about 130 of them in the senior class. Will begin their internships on April 10th and attend an internship boot camp from April 7th to April 9th at RMHS. And I know a lot of seniors, I'm in a class with a couple seniors, an elective, and they're all super excited for it. Not just to get out of school and get out there, but also to gain that working experience a little bit. So that's something everyone's looking forward to.
Do you mind listing those new classes? And we may have some new viewers coming in on this meeting versus the prior meeting too.
Well, this is I'll go to the full list. So new courses for 2025-26 are going to be AP Econ, AP Psychology, Intro to Public Health, Computing number 2, Intro to Cybersecurity, Intro to Environmental Politics, Intro to Civil and Environmental Engineering, and then new courses open to grade 10. There's quite a few of them. AP Chem, AP Biology, AP Government, AP Spanish and French, AP Pre-Calculus, Dual Enrollment Audio Production, Social Media Management, Intro to Public Health, Intro to Environmental Politics, and Intro to Civil and Environmental Engineering. So those are all the new courses and the newly opened courses. So we got the last two.
Yeah, and just some upcoming events to look forward to. February 29th to March 29th is Ramadan, and the library, RMHS Library, will be open during lunch for any Muslim students that are fasting. In addition, there is a prayer location for Muslim students also in the library. Ms. Moylan can assist any students in either of these areas. Also, March 1st is a drama production at Wayland High School at 10 a.m. and tickets are $10. Also, March 5th is school council meeting. Yeah, obviously. And March 8th is the SAT for students that are taking the SAT. March 12th is the college fair at the field house at 6:30. I personally will be attending and I'm really excited for that opportunity. So 125 colleges and universities will be represented and it's open to all RMHS students. So I think that's a great opportunity and I'm looking forward to that. March 20th is the Metco roller wheel trip. I believe that's in Saugus.
It is, yep.
The 22nd is a sophomore semi, which is held in the cafeteria. The 25th and the 26th of March is MCAS for grade 10. That's ELA and late start for grade 9, 11, and 12. March 27th is a PTO quarterly meeting. There's going to be a guest speaker, which is Liz Faria, and it's open to all RPS parents. The topic is when worry comes home, how parents can reduce anxiety in their kids and themselves. And lastly, April 3rd is a junior prom from 7 to 10 p.m. at Andover Country Club.
Sachi's
Sorry,
like,
I'm excited for
country
junior
club?
prom,
Big
and I'm
yes
also
move
excited to
today.
come in late because I don't have to take MCAS this year.
Yeah, we get all of it. Yeah, they get a country club.
Okay, anything else? Any questions for the students? No? Okay, you guys know the rules. You're welcome to stay and encouraged to stay, but we know you have studying and other things to do, so thank you very much. And
Got several tests tomorrow to go
Okay.
study.
Good luck.
several tests to study for. Go take care of that.
George Orwell.
1984, huh?
Yeah, I have to finish that. It's
Well,
good times to be reading it. Yeah.
Go get them.
Thank you.
okay. I
Thank
think
you.
Mr. Littlehale, you're up next here.
I don't really have anything other than the next item for the Q2 update.
Okay. Dr. Milczewski?
Great. Just like to give one shout out and congratulations. Sachi quickly mentioned the gymnastics team who will be competing this week in the state championship. We were just notified that Zach Stein, the head coach, was named the MIA State Coach of the Year, which is obviously a huge recognition for him individually, but also reflecting sort of the program that he's built and the community that he's fostered over there too. So huge congratulations to Coach Stein on that well-deserved recognition. And best of luck this weekend.
Great. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Nope. We'll move on to liaison reports, and we'll start with Sarah.
No report.
No report? Okay. Sean?
No report.
Carla?
Just a quick update on Killam. We've been doing the rounds, going to different PTOs to talk about the project and give people an update. We will be doing a presentation at FinCom next Wednesday.
Finance Committee-wise, Dr. Milczewski, Mr. Littlehale, and I were at the Finance Committee last night for the review of the school committee budget. They did a great job presenting and answering questions, and the vote is going to be in 2 weeks, I think, if that's correct, something like that. Not next week, but the week after. Maybe somewhere in that range. Somewhere before town meeting, we'll just say that, right? I think all their questions were sufficiently answered as far as I could tell, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't vote for it, but obviously they have to do the vote, so. Okay?
Can I say one more thing that I just remembered?
You may.
Thank you. There will be on April 2nd for all, a presentation for all town meeting members on the Killam and Recalc project. It will be like a pre-meeting to town meeting on April 2nd.
Okay, for both projects.
Both projects.
Okay, great. One thing I missed or didn't get to yet was the policy subcommittee. Finally, we're back in action. We did have 2 meetings earlier this month on the 11th and the 18th. Meeting at 7 a.m. on my birthday was a lot of fun. So that was good. We have another meeting scheduled, as I said earlier tonight, on the 4th of March, also at 7 a.m. The challenge has been getting time for the 3 of us with our relative schedules, so we're making progress though, and we'll touch on some of that at the end of the meeting as well. Okay. All right, moving on to the first item in the regular agenda, and that is the 25-26 school calendar. Dr. Milczewski.
Great. So on February 13th, we presented a first draft of the 25-26 calendar for the school committee review. A couple of pieces of feedback that came through in that meeting, 3 pieces of feedback. One was potentially shifting the secondary early release days back from which were on the draft calendar on Wednesdays, back to the Friday, to make sure that we'd be able to limit the burden on families of potentially having to find 2 days of childcare coverage. Second piece of feedback was potentially also moving the October PD day. That would allow us to back that on the October holiday, so it'll be October 13th and 14th off, and so to limit interruptions for students. And then last but not least, there was also the potential, piece of feedback of having the 22nd and 23rd of December being winter vacation days as well. And then adding those on to the end of the year as well. So following those 3 pieces of feedback, we went back as an administrative team, looked at those, and also talked to the RTA leadership around those. And tonight in your packet, you will find an updated draft school calendar for your vote and approval, and a cover letter that explains some of the changes. So 2 of the pieces of feedback we have implemented, you'll see. First, we have shifted the PD day back at the secondary level back from Wednesdays back to Fridays. We feel that would probably be more beneficial to have the PD on Wednesdays for the reasons we described. At the same time, we recognize that that could put a burden on many of our families and felt that both the union and administration felt like it was important to make sure that we could limit that burden on families. So therefore, you should see that reflected on the new draft calendar. Secondly, we did also shift the in-service day to October 14th. So now we have both October 13th and October 14th off, which then should limit interruptions through the month of October as well. The piece of feedback that we did not implement was the longer winter break. I can see both sides of the argument here, but ultimately we felt like having off December 22nd and 23rd would provide a longer break for students, and sometimes for many of our students that extended break can be challenging, just that much of a disruption throughout the consistency of the school year. We also feel on the back end we have currently students coming back on January 5th, so it's a little bit longer than normally it is because of just the way January 1st falls. So we felt it was best to move forward with more of a traditional end time, which is the half day on December 23rd. So that was incorporated that most recent feedback, and open any other conversation, hopefully a vote and approval tonight.
Any other questions, comments from the committee?
Predicting all-time lows in attendance on the 22nd and 23rd of December, but I will let it go. So
we'll make a note of that and look and see.
I'll say we have done this before, so this is not unusual that we have the 22nd and 23rd, but I generally agree that it will be some low times. So, I will say there's one thing I just remembered that we did not yet do, and while we can and will vote and hopefully will approve it, I'll ask that we make a kind of post-approval adjustment, which is not related to the dates themselves. But one of the asks was to put the quarters for the high school on the last page. So not just semesters, but the quarters, because that's when grades are adjusted and sent out and all that kind of fun stuff. So parents would know that.
Yep, great catch. Thank you.
Okay.
like a motion?
I would love a motion.
Motion to approve the 25-26 school calendar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Carla. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll start virtually again. Sarah?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Tom? Yes. And we are hereby approved. We can publish that out.
Great, thank you.
I know that probably as soon as Monday or Sunday comes, somebody's going to ask, hey, does anybody have the calendar for next school year? So
It's actually already been asked.
it's already been asked. There we go. Thank you. So, okay. With that said, we will now move on to the next agenda item, and that would be our Q2 financial report. And while we do that, I'm just going to do a quick share of that document. So that should be available now. Okay, so Mr. Littlehill, we'll start with you.
All right, so this is the Q2 financial report. Unlike Q1, there's a little bit more to talk about now that we've got some more time under our belts for the fiscal year. So we did a couple of things before we presented this. Kate and I spent a lot of time going through all the salary lines, so we've already gone through and did our projections on the salary lines for the rest of the year, so we have a good understanding as to where we're standing on those. So that's why you'll see in the column that we've headed encumbrance / what's left for requirement. We've already forecasted out what we need to encumber for the salaries for the rest of the year. Also went through the non-personnel lines as well. We made an assumption that we're going to spend down all the non-personnel lines as of right now. I mean, we're still 4 months left of the year and 6 months out from these numbers when we put this together. The overall status is that we are in good shape financially. We've got enough money in the general fund to cover all of our expenses, as well as all the other expenses that are paid for by our offsets. So we're looking good. Our forecast here also is already incorporated into the numbers some of the typical year-end things that Reading does. For example, we've already incorporated the prepay on the tuitions for 26. We've also put in about $350,000 estimate for the year-end IT refresh. And also, as of right now, as a placeholder, anticipating perhaps up to $300,000 being able to put that into the special ed fund. So those numbers are already reflected into into that column called the encumbrance requirement for the rest of the year. So when you look at the column that says there's we're estimating to be about $240,000 left, that's after we've already done all those other items. So that's why overall financially we're tracking well, but who knows what happens in the next 3.5 months. But again, we were fortunate this year that we had, I wouldn't say fortunate, but we saved some money relative to the budget on some hires that were coming in, less than what we budgeted for. So that's reflected in some of the balances that we'll have available at year end. And we're also made a couple of tweaks. One tweak in terms of one of the offset numbers, we're anticipating not having to use as much of the kindergarten fund as an offset for this year. We initially budgeted a $485,000 usage out of the fund. We've lowered that down to $400,000. And again, as we get near the end of the year and we see how things are tracking, we'll obviously be doing a Q3 update as well. And then in June, we'll be really tighten things up and get it down to what we're going to end up with. But overall, from my perspective, we're looking good. So if you look through this, one of the things I struggle with in this report is if you look at the year-to-date, what we've spent, it's really hard to have those percentages really tell you much of anything because we have staffs on different payment cycles. So through December, year-round employees have had 12 pay, and the teachers have had 8. So, trying to show what that means for percentage-wise, I'm still struggling with that. Some year I'm going to get that, so it makes sense. Again, all in all, though, all of our lines are tracking well. Any questions on the general fund?
Look around, Sarah. Nope.
Okay. The next page are the grants. The superintendent did force me to actually write a memo this time, so that's why you have the one-page memo. But when I did that, I did miss, if you look down under the state grants, there's 3 new grants listed on there. That's the special earmark for the anatomy table at the high school. That was the, what's the word I'm struggling with?
Innovation pathways?
No, it's an anatomy table, but we don't have real bodies. We have
Cadaver.
Virtual, thank you. Yeah, it's actually a cool-looking machine. So we had $50,000 that got earmarked in the budget for this. There was about $59,000 from a grant from last year, and we had to come up with about $10,000 on the operating budget to cover the final cost, but we got it done, so which is good. We also listed the MyCap grant, and then finally the HQIM, which is the, what is that one called? High Quality Instructional Materials Grant. So those are 3 new ones that were added in for Q2. The only real change that was made on here is a slight adjustment in what we're expecting to have carryover from the IDEA 240 special ed grant. We had 151,000, now we're about 156. But we've also, if you also look, all grant monies for fiscal years 22 and 23 are fully expended, which is good. And we're anticipating that we will fully expend all the fiscal year 24 grant money as well. Just as a reminder to folks that on the entitlement grants, while they are from a certain fiscal year, you actually have approximately 2.5 years to spend the money, though you are limited as to how much you can carry over. It used to be 15%. Then when we hit COVID, they basically said carry over as much as you can. I believe we're back to 15% as the most you can carry over from many of your grants. Any questions on the grants?
So I guess I'll ask one quick question. Besides that 15% adjustment, we're going to zero in many cases. Is there a philosophical change there and using them earlier as opposed to like last year, for example, you look at Title I, we obviously carried over 13,000, Title II, 17,000. Now you're not forecasting to carry anything over. So just wanted to check with the logic there.
It's called my conservative worst case scenario way of doing things. We get to the end of the year, that's sort of, we're going to see where we end up. What do we have left in the grants? What do we have left in the general fund and try to, make sure that we balance that correctly. So we know, for example, that we're going to be carrying over money out of the IDEA grant because that's our biggest grant. The problem with Title I, as we discussed last night with the Finance Committee, is that Title I is down to $89,000.
Yep.
In fact, we did get news today that every year DESE makes adjustments to the grant allocations around January to February. If there's money that some districts haven't accepted, then they reallocate it. So this year for Title I, we got an additional 0. And on Title II, we got $439 more.
Ooh, big dollars.
We're going to take it because, we're not going to leave money on the table. So, again, on the smaller grants, I mean, philosophically, I like on the smaller grants to just try to use them up because, again, they're not big money, so to speak. It's really the IDA grant that you want to work on, try to carry some of that money over.
Okay, so this might not be zero at the end of the year.
That is correct.
But you're
This is our best estimate as of, the end of December.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question, Tom, for the virtual anatomy table? Is that here, and is it up and running?
No, not yet.
Not-
Ordered, supposed to be arriving any day, and we'll get up and running right away.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And what classes will it impact?
It's most of the classes in the healthcare and social assistance pathway, and there's a variety of classes in there. Most notably right now, like the anatomy class as well. That's been one that we were waiting for funds for a while for that table, and finally sort of came through too. So that was not a delay on the high school administration to order. The day those funds came through, we ordered, but it was a pain and a process and longer than we expected.
There was a delay on the 50,000 that had been the earmark out of the budget, because that's actually a fiscal year 24 earmark, not a 25. It's just sometimes things are very slow.
Yeah.
What we're seeing with that table too is that there's a lot of, like when we're talking other communities that use the table, there's a lot of uses. You see Dana in the crowd who probably knows more about it than I do, who probably uses that are even outside of just your traditional like anatomy class, right? That could be of use. So we're still kind of doing some research on where else could it be used. It's really exciting.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question I've never thought to ask before, but I wanted to see, I mean, you may not know the answer, so it may just be a takeaway. And I'm only asking because somebody else was asking me, because that was a negative thing, this elimination of timeout rooms grant. I believe that's training related.
Correct.
Not like we don't have a timeout room anymore.
Correct.
We really need it, but it's more training related for our staff so they can handle the situation more carefully, for lack of a better word.
And to minimize space where students need to be excluded, right? To be able to build staff capacity to handle challenging situations in a way that would increase the chances they can be included as much as they possibly can.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish the grant was worded a little bit differently.
Yeah, if you read the language, it's heavily focused on training and not actually on eliminating timeout rooms.
I know.
Okay, thank you. Bill, is there anything else, revolving accounts and whatnot?
Well, the revolving accounts, just one thing I want to point out is under the full-day kindergarten, you'll see that under the fiscal year 25 offsets, we've lowered that from 485 to 400,000. I mean, that's really the big change. That's just showing, the typical ebbs and flows for a quarter now that, it's a full, now that everything's been up and running.
So looking at the school lunch one,
Yep.
I think I remember last night you said we should carry essentially 4 months worth of revenue or cost into that
The
overall.
regulations say that the most you're supposed to carry is up to 4 months of your monthly revenue. So in our case, that's, going to be, get us around $800,000 to $900,000.
And if I remember correctly, again, yesterday refreshed me, we have a couple of, like an 85 and 85 and a 50 or so capital potential spend in that are related to cafeteria-related stuff?
Yes.
If we spent that theoretical 200 and something thousand, that brings us down to about 900,000, which would be just slightly above that number. Is there anything we need to do to kind of fast path those purchases, or do we think we shouldn't?
That's an artificial thing that's put out there. It's not a regulation. It's one of those things my interpretation is that's what they would like you to target for. In a prior location where I was at the charter school, we had our balance up to about 15 months because it was such a well-run program. So when Desi came in to do our review, I said to the reviewer, what would you like us to do? Because the building was only 8 years old, so I didn't need any capital expenses yet. I said, everything else is running fine. There's no other issues. What would you like us to do? And I said, somewhat sarcastically, shall we start, serving lobster and filet? Because I'm not going to spend money for the sake of getting down to an artificial number. If it makes sense, yes. So I think Mr. Wise, going back to that, yes, I think we can use some of that for some of those capital things, which then, as I think we talked about before, might free up some of the capital money that's been allocated to schools for something else.
That's where I was going with it. Not so much as an obligation to get to the 800,000 or
Yep.
anything, although there's a potential benefit of alignment there, but really more of the, I think it's in 26, we have an 85, and 52 related cost related to
Yeah.
cafeteria. If I mean, we don't have to spend it now, but if we know is there need now and it's only in 26 because that's when it can be put in the capital budget, then if we could spend it now and it would help the program and is needed now, then maybe we could.
Well, what is needed right now are a couple of new ovens, and Katie has sent me down a requisition request for 2 new ovens. I forget which school it's for, and it's about a total of about 90,000, so I think that's one of the items that is on the capital plan, and she needs them now.
The only other context I'll add to is on the downside of trying to spend some of that down now, maybe quicker than we would, is just some of the conversation around like federal grants and federal investment in food service programs. I think having that number a little bit higher right now is something I think I'd be a little more comfortable with the uncertainty of what that will look like the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If it's something we need, right? That's what, if it's something we want, that's a different story. But if it's something we need and it would benefit getting here a year earlier, then great. But just something to think about, so.
Agreed.
Okay.
Bill, what did you say the amount was on those ovens? 9 or 90?
I think they're about 45,000 each. So Katie's gone through, she's purchasing them off the state contract, so in terms of the bid stuff, we're okay with that. I just haven't had a chance to talk to her about it to, go over it, make sure I'm comfortable with it before we put in the requisition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it on revolving accounts. On the gift and donations, I just did want to point out, in case anyone was looking at the numbers, Wood End, its donation balance has gone down because they took out about $13,000 to finish paying for their rock wall, both the purchase and the installation of it. So that was the big thing that was going on there. On the other ones, not much really else to say. I mean, they're all looking well at this point. And then finally, on the student activity accounts, I just wanted to point out, I put it on the notes, what some of the expenses have been for the student activity accounts. For the 2 middle schools, a lot of it's been for Nature's Classroom, so that's where that's coming from. And for the high school, it's reflecting what's already been spent for homecoming, the Costa Rica trip, and the Switzerland trip. So
Can I just say, before anybody questions, why is Wood End getting a rock wall? It was a donation specifically for a rock wall, you may recall, so. Okay.
I do not know that, so thank you.
Wood End kids are special. They just get all the best treatment.
You know what, that's exactly what people are going to think, and that's what I'm trying to head off. A parent specifically donated money for a rock wall, so.
And so at this point, we don't have any need for any large transfers. I don't expect to be coming to you folks with those until the fourth quarter. Again, we want to track through the third quarter, make sure Katie and I will go back in. I'll say Katie will go back in and revise the projections out for all the salary lines. So as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll be much sharper in terms of the overall numbers.
Okay. One of the things we've seen in the past that we don't see here, and I don't know that we need to, but just want to see if we have a status of it, is the graduation accounts, the class of XYZ accounts, right?
Yes,
Big
that's student
conversation about
activities.
dispersing of those funds and getting them back to the class officers and stuff like that. So it'd be good to get a quick update on that.
Okay.
Maybe just via a liaison or update report next time or something like that.
I'll bring it in for the next meeting.
That's great. Dr. Corum?
I was just, Jeffrey Corum, Ridge Road, just looking at the revolving accounts, the Q2 revolving accounts, and I noticed that extracurricular Parker appears in the budget book that was distributed to FinCom yesterday, but does not appear on this list in the packet tonight.
Because there were two revolving accounts. One was Parker after school, one was Parker extracurricular, and we have merged them.
Okay. There was particularly the extracurricular Coolidge and extracurricular Parker that had not had any activity over the past, I'm going to say 10 years. And extracurricular Coolidge, again, has not moved in this budget. So
It's been, we are slowly going through and figuring out what we can and what we can close down and move around.
Okay.
We got to be careful with that because these are revolving accounts. We
Right.
want to make sure that we stay within what we're allowed to do.
Yes.
So, but yeah, Katie and I have been working, there's some cleanup that we still want to do with this, try to close down some accounts that we haven't used in a while and get rid of them.
So should the budget book then be revised to because the extracurricular Parker is no longer a separate account?
The 26 budget, so what doesn't exist for 26, so it's just probably a small update if we can make that up.
I believe it's $650.
Yeah.
So I don't know the history here. For me, a $650 line in there, I'm not sure if it's going to be worth going and reproducing an entire budget book for it. But I'll do what the committee feels we should do.
It should be a pretty quick update, too. I mean, just.
Yeah, I
in
wouldn't
a-
say
in
it's,
the-
we're not printing it, we haven't printed it.
Just in the
anywhere.
virtual.
It's just a PDF virtual
Yeah.
update, of like one page, so if
All right.
if it takes
I'll fix it.
15 minutes or something, we can get it fixed, right? That's my view. I don't think
Yeah.
that's a difference.
Okay, we'll get that fixed.
Consistency is met.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it for the report. Any other questions?
Other questions from the committee? Sarah? No? Carla?
Nope.
And again, if there's other things that you're looking for, please let me know. For example, in terms of the student activity counts, that's a good item, good thing to add to it.
Great, thank you. And that's moving on in the agenda, then we will move on. So Phil, thank you, Mr. Little, thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the kindergarten enrollment update, and Dr. Milczewski.
Great. So in your packet, you'll see an updated kindergarten enrollment document. A couple of things I'd like to share. First, the number now is at 287. That is does not include any school choice or does not include any METCO at this point either. Couple things on that. I feel like this year we had a more firm deadline to be able to get your priority school as the beginning of February. We did a lot to try to contact all of the families who we thought could be out there, whether that was sending out email blasts, whether that was contacting your local preschools, whether that was Facebook notifications, sending letters, multiple letters to everyone who was on our census data. And I think something we did this year, which was a little bit different, was we also used the Town of Reading property assessment data to find the names and of people who were, or actually to find the contact information of families who were also on the census information but hadn't yet registered, and we were able to track down some families that way too. So I share all that to say we feel like we have hit the majority of families who may be out there who are already living in Reading who are eligible for kindergarten. 287 is below our projections of 340, as again, the reminder of why do we have 340. The demographic study we had the projection of 313. We had 20 students who we knew were eligible for kindergarten who did not enroll last year, and also 7 students who are not on the census data who contacted us who had interest in registering their child. That brought us to 340. We knew that would be on the high end. I still think it's on the high end, but at 287, I think we're going to go, a little bit above that, especially as we get into school choice into METCO and some families move in. We always get some more registrations over the summer. So where does that bring us? So I think in the packet, you'll see it broken down by school at this point. We did, as you know, allocate in the FY26 budget an additional kindergarten teacher for an additional classroom. The spot where we're hoping that we don't need that for next year is at Barrows. The reason being this would be 4 classrooms at Barrows. If anyone who's familiar with the Barrows community, there's not a lot of space. That would pose a significant space challenge for us at Barrows. So we are hopeful that we can keep that to 3 classrooms. As of now, we have 62 students registered. We're going to try to keep that number as close to that as we can, and then fill some of the other schools where right now, as you can tell by the numbers, that we have space in each of those as well, too. Feel really good about where we are right now, is that we can have, obviously some autonomy and choice over where we'd place METCO and school choice, and also knowing we have space in most of our schools for students who still move into. So we'll keep the community and the committee informed as the spring moves forward, and especially if we get into a position where we feel like we definitely will not need to move forward with that additional kindergarten teacher.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? I think you hit on pretty much everything we talked about last night in the Finance Committee too, so I have no questions. Okay, then we'll move on to the awarding of the David B. Libby Scholarship. And Dr. Milczewski, you want to start with this?
There's not a lot on here, which you'll see a memo in your packet which outlines, for the last couple of years, as you know, there was a David B. Libby Scholarship Fund, which allows us to provide scholarships each year. For the last couple of years, it's been 22 deserving seniors, 4,000 each, and the criteria being left by the David Libby family was qualifying students residing in Reading and graduating from Reading Memorial High School. So this is the vote tonight is just the committee approving the town to expend the $88,000 again this year. So I would just like to thank the David B. Libby Scholarship Fund and the family for this generous donation that I think has been very well received and appreciated by so many families and students in our community.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it, just because I'm looking through some of the language here. So I move to approve the David B. Libby Scholarship distribution in alignment with the scholarship intent to be established, for qualifying students residing in Reading, Mass. And graduating from Reading Memorial High School.
Second.
Seconded by Carla. Any discussion or topics or concerns? Carla, go ahead.
So this is for this year's seniors?
This year's,
Yep.
Considering we have seniors, this is just to appropriate the funding.
Correct.
Yes.
We have no say in the people being awarded.
Okay.
Well, technically we do, but we don't. So we have no input into that.
Okay.
But that is a good concern to raise. So
You can
Sarah,
approve the
should-
criteria. It's not,
Yeah.
you're approving the criteria and they're generic enough that it's not.
it's not for our individual kids.
Yeah, I don't think you have any conflict of interest issues. Can I just make a friendly amendment that we include the $88,000 amount in the motion?
Sure. Yep.
I think since we're approving an expenditure, probably
Yep.
should include the
Okay.
figure.
So amended.
Okay.
And you have no objection to that, I assume?
No.
Okay, so amended. Thank you very much. Okay, so, all right, roll call. Sarah?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Tom? Yes, and it passes 4-0. Okay, thank you very much, and we're moving right along. So, discussion and potential vote on a town meeting warrant article for school bus camera enforcement systems per Chapter 399 of the Acts of 2024. Dr. Milczewski, do you want to start this, or do you want me to?
Sure, I don't mind starting. So again, you'll find a memo in the packet that gives a little bit more information, but in kind of broad strokes, on January 10th, Governor Healy signed a bill into law. It allows for bus-mounted cameras to be able to issue fines for vehicles that pass stop school buses, and then it basically allows towns and cities to be able to, move forward with this. Move forward with the program, they have to accept the provisions of the law and do this formally. So for us, we need to move forward and have this approved by a town meeting. So a couple of things. One, in following sort of where this has already been approved, the towns where I've seen this already approved are ones that have their own bus companies as well. So in here, you'll see a link to an article that talks a little bit about what's happened in Salem and in Peabody, who are both moving forward with this program. For those in the community here may wonder, for us, we partner with North Suburban for our busing. We have been in contact with North Suburban to kind of inquire about what would this cost look like? Would we share costs with other communities? How would who would that bill fall on? So there's still more information for us to have in terms of the actual cost. So that's one piece. Two, I've been asked, is there a need for this in our community as well? Speaking to some committee members said they remember years ago some comments on Facebook around people saying, I saw someone, buzz by a bus when kids were getting off. I haven't heard much of that feedback since I've been here for the last 4 years from bus drivers themselves. With that said, we know what is happening in the region. In one of the articles linked in the packet, you'll see there's a kind of a press release from Salem who said, well, again, a different community, different context, different amount of buses, but from September 1st to December 30th, they put the cameras on and monitored sort of the amount of suspected violations. I didn't believe this number when I saw it, 3,371 violations. So again, I haven't heard firsthand of that being an issue in our community, but given even just what Salem had alleged on the violations, like to think that there's probably some level of violation happening in our community at some point too. I've been asked where I stand on this too. I mean, from my perspective, anything that we can do to keep, promote student safety, I stand behind. Particularly, we know that that's such a vulnerable position for students as they are getting off a bus and crossing in front of traffic and things like that as well. So I am not necessarily advocating for any action or needed action tonight, but I did want to make the committee aware, and if the committee wants to pursue further action tonight, that's great. But I will also loop back in the next couple of weeks with some more information around what the cost would look like too, so that can be evaluated, and then we can move forward as you see fit.
Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sort of generally supportive of the concept of something that improves safety for our students. I think the question of the cost does matter, given that we haven't experienced this as a huge, or at least doesn't seem like we've experienced this as a huge issue in town. So that is interesting, it's interesting to me to find out what the cost is. The other thing that I would like us to think about as we work with our partners on the town side on this, I just scanned the law, and it's not clear in the law, but I would assume the police department, the town police department is the issuing authority for the violations. And so some percentage, if not all of that revenue comes to the town. So I don't know if this could be something that maybe we put it in accommodated cost or something along those lines, so that we're not absorbing operating costs in our budget and generating revenue on the town side. Great. Just maybe something to look at as we work with, Matt and his team on what this would look like at town meeting and so forth.
Yeah, we originally talked about this because it came through MASC. I think Arlington passed it as well. And we do have to do a warrant meeting, a warrant article for it to show up and then have town meeting approve it.
Yep.
Right? So I don't know that we're ready for that yet, because I think we need a little bit more intel and understanding. But Dr. Milczewski and I were talking as well is, even if we don't have that, the ability to be able to do it once we have that, it would be something that we want to make sure we pursue. I do think the warrant for this April is going to close here soon, so if we don't act tonight, we probably won't be able to act for April, but we can follow through on this and then see if we want to get it for November as something to go through. So, yeah, I do remember, and I'm sure others on this committee remember, that there have been plenty of Facebook posts over time about people speeding by parked bus or stopped buses with their stop signs out. So it's not that it's not happening here, it's just a matter of how do we make sure we do it smartly and efficiently. Is there anything on your side? Carla, anything for you?
No.
Okay. All right, seeing none, then we will keep moving on. No motion, no thing to approve. We'll just move on. So the cell phone policy, potential stuff, and I'm looking at this in terms of, first, Sean, you asked for it based upon some stuff that's happening at the state level. Dr. Milczewski's done some research, and the administration has done some research on this as well. So one, I want to hear about some of the research and what the thought process of the administration is, and then two, I'd like to get some feedback from the committee on whether they want this to be pursued by the subcommittee and any potential guidance and kind of what options you would like us to look at. So Dr. Milczewski, we'll start with you.
Great. So this is, I think, the first of several conversations, probably this spring and also into the summer, talking about cell phones and device usage in schools. As you may know, Mass State Legislature recently proposed an act that promotes safe technology use in a distraction-free environment. And then that information and that legislation is also in your packet for review. These are things that we've been talking about even before this, kind of legislation was being kicked around. I think that these conversations, before we are to move in one direction or another, I think these are conversations that need to include the voices of our high school, especially our high school administration, our high school educators, a lot of our families. I've already received a lot of opinions from that community, like a lot of times contrasting and differing opinions on what this should look like. So I think this is one that we'd really need a lot of community engagement on a plan moving forward. So Principal Cowan and I have already started talking about trying to get some more formal process for us to think about what this would look like. I think a resource that we found particularly useful recently was the Attorney General released a toolkit for school leaders and communities around, with the potential of this moving forward as, being passed by both the state and the House, by the state. It would. The toolkit gives you a couple of things. One, some sample model policies to be able to use for use. Two, some conversations around like how do you start to get your community or processes, how do you get your community on board with the direction that you're moving? And then what is some of the curriculum that could be used around digital media literacy? I think the part here that is most interesting to us right now is the kind of the toolkit outlines a few different models of what implementation of a distraction-free environment could look like. The three there that kind of represent a different type of a spectrum being one, bell to bell, no phones. Well, I think more in the middle is that their phones are on, the policy will be phones are, you can have them, phones are off and phones are away. Then all the way on the other end of, limited use, which would allow certain periods of the day or certain designated times where students would be allowed to use phones. I think the feedback I've heard, kind of weighing those out with some of our staff already, is a lot of our staff and a lot of our leaders feel that we have an obligation as a school community to teach our students appropriate use and how to navigate a world where students are having to grapple with the distractions and the challenges of being, having technology readily available and sort of on you. And also recognizing that that poses some pretty significant distractions, or can pose some significant distractions for our students, particularly where they are developmentally. So I think, obviously those represent, a pretty wide view of belief. So I think the next step on our end was Principal Cowan and I, coming up with some more formal process to be able to gather feedback and ideas, to be able to get some more input that would help inform the committee as the committee would come up with a policy, and to be able to kind of kickstart that process soon. I'm saying the high school, this is predominantly, we think, a high school challenge right now, but it is seeping to the middle school level as well, and I even say at the elementary level as well. But we're going to start with the majority of our conversation up here at the high school as well. But I'd love to hear any thoughts, feedback, direction from the committee as we dive in.
John, your hand up.
So I certainly think it makes a ton of sense to get a lot of feedback from, from teachers and administrators at the high school and middle school, who are going to have to implement whatever we do. I also think, though, this is a policy where we probably could never do enough to sort of try to hear from the community about, sort of what they'd prefer in their schools, right? I can't tell you how many parents I hear from that have like immense regret about having gotten their kids' phones and would welcome knowing that their kids spend 6 or 7 hours a day not touching their phone. And so, I hear, I hear the sort of balanced perspective. I worry sometimes when you talk about three options, there's Goldilocks syndrome where the one in the middle always feels like the right one. I don't want us to be predisposed to thinking that way. So I think there's a lot of value in us trying to, I don't know what the forum is or what the approach is, but almost like we do a hearing on something that requires a hearing where, there's kind of more of a process around making sure that we're creating opportunities for people to be heard as we consider, what we want to recommend to the policy subcommittee or however we're going to approach that. All that weighed against certainly the practical implications of people that have to implement it in the schools and what that looks like, I think is certainly a big part of that. But I think this is one where we need to make a point to hear from the community as well as the staff.
Can I have a follow-up comment too? I wholeheartedly agree with you on that, on like hearing the feedback from the community and from the staff as well. And I'd also add, like, another word that just is hearing too, is also like, there's an obligation for us to inform the community as well around some of the research of what's coming out, I think even recently around brain development, impact of social media. You'll see one of the quotes here that resonates with us. It says about social media from the U.S. Surgeon General. It said, with near universal social media use by America's young people, these apps and sites introduce profound risk and mental health harms in ways we are only now beginning to fully understand. As physicians, we see firsthand the impact of social media, particularly during adolescence, a critical period of brain development. And then you see some of the other in there listed, some of the research that backs that up. So while we need to hear feedback from folks, I also think there's the obligation of the school district to be able to inform people about what is the body of research that would be backing some of these policies, because that may also shift some of their perspective and thinking on some of these things as well.
I think this would be, I agree wholeheartedly that this is a town-wide, like this is a broader scope of hearing from people. But I'm also thinking that there would be different levels at different levels of school, different policies potentially. And then you always hear the flip side, right? At the high school even, the kids know what the expectations are in each individual class, and they know kind of the wiggle rooms that they have too, right? And the frustrations in class because of it. So it's the compliance piece of it as well. It's just that we're arming them with the policy. The compliance still needs to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be an interesting process.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing here is that it's not something we want the policy subcommittee to take up unless, although we might have to think about their interest from the rest of the committee, unless it's in a hearing type presentation shape form, right? With that said, I think it probably sounds like it's going to be more of a whole committee conversation and whatnot. So I was thinking as Tom was originally talking, okay, is this an advisory subcommittee that goes and does it? And I don't think that's necessarily the best approach either. Picking a group of people or anything else to go look through it. I think getting the collective feedback sounds appropriate. We might want to start with some sort of like survey, right? That we can get some feedback, that we can do some analysis on, word cloud or otherwise analysis, maybe some structured questions that can give us some sort of starting point. It doesn't have to, it's not going to be perfect. They never are, but maybe it's something that we can start with in addition to the research. That could be part of a presentation leading into an open forum Q&A type process. I've heard, in addition to some of the, I can't believe I get my kid a phone so early. Then the other side of it I hear on that when you talk, especially when you come to the high school, is there's the perception of safety or having safety by having a phone available. And I say perception because I think there's a great deal of that our schools are already very safe in the way they are, but there's a perception if something were to happen that having a phone and the ability to call out or get somebody there or whatever, is a good thing. So there's a lot of factors to balance in this. Fortunately, in our district, we're one-to-one from an other technical platform perspective, but in many districts, the phone is the way in which kids get access to certain things. So we'll have to account for that in case we have problems with replenishment of our technology platforms, right? Because some kids could use their phones to get to Google Classroom or something like that if we needed to. And we heard earlier today about the Wi-Fi being a challenge in getting to Google Classroom. So there's going to be some technical sides of this to consider as we go through it as well. So a lot to come. I think we'll have to figure out collectively how we want to schedule that. I think it's important that it doesn't happen over the summer. But what do we need to do to prepare ourselves for it? And then when do we want to start holding those conversations?
If I can just add, thank you, one piece to it is the conversations that should be having, the individual schools should be having of what, and there'll be multiple conversations, I'm assuming, in staff meetings and stuff.
PTO, school council.
Yeah, like really getting the feedback from the teachers and the administrations and stuff.
Okay. Sarah, anything on your side?
No, I think just adding to that, I think obviously it's super complex. There's a lot of ideas and thoughts and opinions, I think, from, all key stakeholders. So important to hear from parents and families, teachers, staff, administrators, and then balancing that with what are, data and policy raising at state level, and taking all those different nuances into consideration around supporting all learners, the adaptive technology, other things that some students are relying on their phones, for example, to support their learning. If, we're taking away from what does that mean for providing appropriate tools and just thinking about those kinds of things.
Okay. All right, any other feedback or thoughts on that? Dr. Cron?
I would just like to encourage the committee to also really involve the middle school, because I think there are a number of, when my daughter was there, and that was years ago, it was even in 6th grade, kids were texting back and forth in class. And it's, you stop something like that earlier before they've developed the habit of, oh, I got to check, before it becomes kind of ingrained in their processes.
My 6th grader is known as an iPad kid because she doesn't have a phone. So it's that prevalent in 6th grade already.
Yep. I know, yep, it was a 5th grade thing, I think, for us in many ways. So I'm not surprised that it's a 6th grade thing or otherwise. elementary, I think, as we were saying, that needs to be included as well, very much. It's all levels, and appropriate use may be different, and we need to figure out how we address that across the levels, as well as things like, some other districts do things like, an iPad wall, a phone wall, when you walk in, you go put it in a pouch or something, so it's there, but you're not using it. And that goes to the compliance side of it, right? If that becomes part of the standard process, then it's there from a safety perspective, but it's not being used unless explicitly allowed or something along those lines. So there could be a capital or financial side of this too, as we work through the actual implementation of the policy, to be thought through too, so. Okay, good. Seeing no further topics on that or discussion on that part, we'll move to the last item, which is notification. So as the packet memo says, Apology BGB policy adoption provides for our ability to notify of amendments of policies that are in existence for a single meeting member vote. So we have 6 policies that will be on our next agenda on March 13th. Policy IKF, which is our graduation requirements one, was updated as a result of the most recent vote in November, removing MCAS as a graduation requirement. So we had to add a competency determination process in alignment with that. Then there's 5 personnel policies that we have reviewed with legal counsel and the HR director. A couple of them, Michelle herself did a lot of edits on to clean up and make even more clear, for lack of a way to put it. So those 5 will be up for discussion, review, and hopefully adoption votes. This is 6 of, I counted 159 policies on my list. So we are a bit behind, and we have another meeting next Tuesday, which does include the next and hopefully final review of FF before it comes before us as a greater group, and in 6 other personnel policies, and that's not even the end of the personnel policies pile. So we have a lot of work to do. We continue to work through it, and we seem to have found some sort of cadence with early morning meetings on Tuesdays. So we'll see how we progress from there. Any questions on the notification? Okay, seeing none. That is our last agenda item.
So one thing real quick, if I follow up, Kate Finnegan must be tuning in at home and had a quick follow-up on the student activity account, so I figured I'd just save an action item. So Kate emailed and says, in response to Tom White's question regarding class account balances, thank you, Kate, all past graduating class account balances have been transferred to outside bank accounts. Class of 2024 did not have any funds left over after graduation to transfer to an outside account. The class of 2025 account balance is currently $12,450.47, but they still have prom/end of year activities to pay for. Thank you, Kate.
Kate. She's a rock star.
I was just going to say.
Saved an action item.
Feels like check, done. Okay, no further agenda items.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Carla, seconded by Sean, not debatable. Roll call, Sarah?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Tom? Yes, and we are adjourned at 8:23.